How's it going, guys? Peshcats here, and it's Christmas. Well, at least in California, it's currently Christmas. If you live in certain parts of Asia, it's not currently Christmas, and by the time it's uploaded, probably Europe, it won't be Christmas anymore either. Um, anyways, this is my Christmas present to you guys. I'm finally gonna upload the Sinon Waifu deck profile that was supposed to be uploaded, who knows how long ago. For any of you guys who know me in real life or are long-time subscribers to my channel, you would know that Sinon is the best girl, and so you gotta have that Sinon waifu deck. And so today I'm gonna be showing you guys the latest version of the Sinon waifu deck, which features cards from Sword Art Online 2 Volume 2, and this has been highly requested. And let's just get right into it. Oh, also, real quick note, this deck does have quite a few cards that are not available in the English version of the game, and I know someone's going to ask, if I play English, how can I build this deck? And my answer to you is, I'm going to leave a link, either in an annotation or the description, to my first Sinon waifu deck profile, which I posted to YouTube. Go watch that video, replace the 1-1 Sinons with 1-0 Vanillas, and then you have a deck. That's as good as I can make it. So yeah. Okay, starting with the level zeros, running, of course, 4 basic knowledge of guns Sinon. Just like in the last build, this is our ideal level 0 to have on our level 01 to play on turn 1. If I have no other characters in the front row, she gets plus 1000 power and gains hand encore. So having a 3500 hand encore is very good for this deck's level 0 game, which lacks a lot of level 0 frontline. As you can see, it's got like a bunch of supports and like some utility, but not a lot of front row power. So this is a very important card to get early game. However, in the late game, it's very unimportant to have, so you can usually just throw these into your level. But yeah, this is the card you're definitely going to want to have on turn 1, and when you combine its 3500 base power with all these supports that we run, it'll usually get pretty big. The highest that this deck can make it is 5500 on the opponent's turn, assuming you have 2 of the Brainstorm or Swimsuits, and it's in the center slot. But yeah, it's just a pretty decent level 0. Secondly, we are running 2 copies of the Wildcat Girl Sinon from Sword Art 2 Volume 2. When it comes into play, choose one of your other avatar or net characters, and until the end of the opponent's turn, it gets 1000 power. So when I saw this card, first thing I noticed was it can't buff itself, which kind of sucks, but hey, I'm not really complaining. It's a level 0 that has 2000 or more attack, which is more than I can say that this deck has had in the past. Before it was like this was the only thing with more than 2000 attack, and everything else was just like utility and like and supports. So this is a nice improvement. I'm running 2 copies of it because I can use it to buff my mid-game characters like Clock Encore and Hand Encore. It makes it so I don't even have to use their Encore effects sometimes, which is good. But having the Encore effects is a nice fallback. But yeah, this is a pretty decent card in my opinion. Moving on, running 3 Ideal Self Sinons. The Clock Searcher lets me search for a level 2 or higher by hitting myself when it comes in the field. You usually search for like a level 3 Sinon with this, especially during the later stages of the game when you're setting up for level 3 and you're going to wombo combo them as soon as you hit level 3. But apart from that, you can search for either the anti-counter Sinon if you know you're playing against a deck that has some problematic counters, or you can search for the check 6 if your opponent is going to be running early drop level 3s. I'm running 6 supports at level 0, 3 Mission at Dusk and 3 Swimsuit Sinons. They are both very similar cards, but they serve different roles in my opinion from the way I've played it. So I'm going to start with the Swimsuit Sinon. So they both give 500 power to front, but they have a different second ability. Swimsuit Sinon's second ability is during my opponent's turn, my character in the front row center slot gets a 500 point boost on top of the assist. So my front row center slot character will basically be getting a 1k buff during the opponent's turn. So it's more of a defensive card and works on the opponent's turn, whereas the Mission at Dusk is a more offense-oriented card, where if I play a Climax, I can give a 1000 buff to a character on my field. So this is pretty good with the 1-0 Shino combo and the 2k1. It lets you distribute power a lot of different ways. You can be creative with the buffing and stuff. But I feel like this card is more oriented towards the mid game, where I am going to be using Climaxes and Climax combos. Typically, you're not going to be seeing too many Climax plays, at least not from me, with this deck during the first couple turns. So this is much better during the mid game, turn 3 onwards, whereas the Sinon, the swimsuit Sinon, is better on turn 1 or 2 during the level 0 game. And finally, to finish off the level 0s, I run 2 copies of the Sinon Brainstorm. During the opponent's turn, my front row center slot character gets 1000 buff, and Brainstorm, pay 1 for each Climax hit, search my deck for character, and discard characters equal to the number of Climaxes that were milled by the effect. So just a solid Brainstorm lets me mill through the deck if needed and filter out my hand as well. So just running 2 copies of this in this build. Previously, I think I ran a full set, but with all the other level 0s that were introduced into this deck, I was able to cut down copies of this and run some other stuff. So yeah, that is my level 0, 17 level 0s, and let's move on to the level 1s. I'm pretty sure the level 1 line is completely unchanged. Maybe I ran like 3 counters of the Sinon counter, 3 copies of the Sinon counter in the previous version, but for the most part, the level 1 line remains the same. I run 4 copies of the Clock Encore Sinon, just a very solid level 1 costless card. Being able to hit 6k while also having Clock Encore is very, very good. And just with all other copies of like this card, so like Nisekoi and Madoka, and then also Love Live is getting this as well as a Maki in SF movie. These cards are just very solid level 1s. Moving on now to, of course, Challenge to the Strong Sinon. It's a 1/6k, and when I have 3 or more other net or avatar characters, she gets a 1k buff, bringing her up to 7k, and she has Hand Encore. So 1/7k Hand Encore. It's not the most exciting of cards, but it's effective. With all of the supports that are played in this deck, this can get pretty high, and just a solid level 1 to keep on your field. A lot of your level 0s are pretty crappy during the at the point where you're going to start playing this card, so you can discard those for the Hand Encore for this card, and just keep a nice fat beater on the board. 3 copies of the Wanting to Become Stronger Shino, Global 500, and Climax combo with the 2k1 Climax. When the Climax is played, I can pay 1 stock and give a Sinon character 2k, and the ability, when this battle opponent of this card is reversed, I can draw a card until the end of the turn. So it's a good way to get hand advantage, since the 2k1 will replace itself when you draw a card. And then the Climax combo lets you draw an additional card, so you get a +1 on your hand, while also distributing power boosts across the field, so you can just get rid of your opponent's stuff. Very good level 1 card. And finally, 2 copies of the Angry Sinon, 2k counter, and when I use the counter, I mill 3. You can use this to get through your deck if you're in a sticky situation, or just, 2k counter and hope you don't mill a bunch of Climaxes. So yeah, there's the level 1 line. It's, what is it, 12 level 2s? Or 12 level 1s? Oh my god, I'm so tired. I got like 6 hours of sleep. But yeah, that's the level 1 line, and now going to the level 2s. Okay, here we have the level 2s. This is also, for the most part, unchanged. I added in 1 copy of the new Sinon. But for now, let's talk about the other 2 cards. So first, we have Check 6 Sinon, the anti-level 3. If she's battling versus a level 3 character, she gets +3k, and I can rest 2 of my avatar or net characters to give her an additional 2500. So even if this isn't fighting against a level 3, it's a pretty useful card to have going into level 2. Because if your opponent has something large that is kind of hard to deal with, you can play this, use its Rest 2 ability, since nothing in this deck really rests except for the anti-counter, and get that nice 2500 buff, and on top of your supports and possibly a Climax, this can get really, really big and kill whatever your big card your opponent has on their field. So just a handy card to have access to in the deck if your opponent plays something big or something level 3. Like let's say they play an early drop at level 2. You can get this and get rid of that card. Next, we're running 2 Machine of Ice Sinon. This is our anti-counter. Very useful card if your opponent is playing important counter cards, such as like Sayaka's Wish type cards or anti-damage cards like money counter or like darkness counter. Although if you're playing against Tulavru, this probably isn't going to do anything because your opponent's Yamis are untargetable. So yeah, just throwing that out there real quick. But this can also be used to just prevent your stuff from dying, prevent your opponent from playing a counter so that your opponent's stuff can guaranteed kill theirs and you can keep your stuff on the board. And on top of that, it gives a 1k buff in front. Very, very good level 2 support card. And finally for the level 2, we're running 4 of this Kate Sith Sinon. So it's 2-1. During my opponent's turn, it's a global 1500. So pretty nice fat buff, but only on the opponent's turn, which is not the greatest. And her other ability is when she comes into play, she has an Akatsuki effect. I can discard 1 card from my hand to look at up to 4 cards from the top of my deck, choose an avatar or net character among them, add it to my hand, and send the rest to the waiting room. So the fact that Akatsuki effect is on a costed card, a 2-1, not exactly the greatest, but it's there if I need to discard cards. So I think that the card is not the greatest in the world, but it's good to have the option of getting extra cards out of my hand, especially before refresh. This deck does not have a lot of discard outlets. In fact, it's only this card, the level 0 Brainstorm, and that's assuming I hit Climaxes, and the level 3 Sinon on her Climax combo. So having more ways to discard cards is very important for this deck. And the 1500 buff on top of that is just a nice bonus. So, yeah, pretty decent card. I feel like only 1 copy is really needed. And to be realistic, there's not any space to try and put in a second copy. So 1 copy for now, pretty good. So that's our level 2s, and now let's move on to the level 3s. With no new level 3s being released for this deck, the level 3 lineup has remained the same. 4 last shot Sinons. On attack, pay 2, discard 1, Climax combo with the book Climax to deal 4 damage, and if your opponent cancels the damage, then this gets plus 3500 until the end of the opponent's next turn. So either you hit them for a lot, or she's going to get buffed by a lot. So very good card. And she also on-play heals, so yes. And because her ability is so strong, when she gets reversed, she goes straight to memory so that you can't reuse her abilities on any following turns. You're going to have to draw into new copies of her. And the other level 3 I run is 4 copies of the excellent Sniper Sinon, the only other Sinon level 3. When it comes into play, heal 1, and for every other character, avatar, net character I have on the stage during my opponent's turn, she gets 500 power. So reaches a maximum of 12k power before assists on the opponent's turn. With the rise of Charlotte in popularity, we are seeing a lot of anti-burns at my locals, or quite a few anti-burns anyway. And so, because of that, this last shot Sinon becomes the inferior choice to the excellent Sniper Sinon. So, this card is seeing use in my deck, whereas before it was basically just search last shots, hit for 4, herp or derp. But yeah, now I am actually able to see a good amount of use out of both of these cards. So, that is the level 3s. Now the only thing left to do is the Climaxes. Of course, 4 copies of First Step, 2k1 Soul for the Shino combo at level 1. And of course, 4 copies of Phantom Bullet for the Last Shot Sinon combo. So, there you guys have it. This has been the Sinon Waifu deck profile. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays with whatever you celebrate, and I'll see you next time. Bye.